The prophecy was clear. She would be his death. What it didn't say was that he would choose her anyway, again and again, until his last breath. The iron chains bit into Kira Ashenblade's wrists as she knelt in the mud, rain soaking through her thin shirt. 3 hours she'd been waiting. 3 hours since the Shadowmere guards had dragged her across the border, declaring her a spy, a threat, an Omega who dared to cross into Alpha territory, uninvited. Thunder rolled across the dark sky, and Kira fought to keep her teeth from chattering. The cold seeped through her bones, but it wasn't the weather that made her tremble. It was the knowledge of what, or rather who, waited for her inside that fortress. Thorne Nightshade, the Alpha King himself. She'd come to Shadowmere for one reason, to find her sister. Sarah had disappeared 6 months ago, her last letter a cryptic warning written in their childhood code. Asterisk, the Alpha knows what we are. The seers have spoken. Leave the Ashenblade pack. Run. Asterisk. But Kira hadn't run. She'd done what any desperate sister would do. She'd walked straight into the lion's den, or in this case, the wolf's territory, armed with nothing but determination and a hastily forged travel permit that fooled no one. She's been out here long enough. A guard muttered nearby. Either bring her in or send her back. The Alpha doesn't have time for every stray that crosses our borders. This one's different, another replied, his voice dropping. She has the mark. Kira's hand instinctively moved to her left shoulder blade, where a crescent-shaped birthmark had always resided. Her mother had called it a blessing. The village elders had called it something else, entirely a curse, an omen, the brand of the moon's chosen. She'd spent 24 years hiding it, covering it, pretending it didn't exist. Now it had betrayed her. The fortress doors groaned open, and Kira's breath caught. A figure emerged, tall and commanding even from a distance. He moved with predatory grace, each step deliberate, purposeful. The guards immediately straightened, heads bowing in deference. Even through the rain and gathering darkness, Kira could see him clearly. Thorne Nightshade wasn't just an alpha, he was a force of nature. Dark hair hung past his shoulders, framing a face carved from stone and shadow. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Molten silver, like mercury catching moonlight, and they were fixed directly on her. 3 hours in the rain. His voice carried across the courtyard, deep and resonant. Most would have begged for mercy by now. Kira lifted her chin, meeting his gaze despite the fear clawing at her throat. I didn't come here to beg, Your Majesty. I came for answers. Power? Something flickered in those silver eyes. Surprise, perhaps. Or recognition. He closed the distance between them in 3 long strides, circling her like a wolf assessing prey. Kira forced herself to remain still, even as every instinct screamed at her to run. Do you know what you are, little Omega? He asked softly, stopping directly in front of her. I'm Kira Ashenblade. My sister. I know who your sister is, he interrupted. His hand shot out, gripping her chin and tilting her face toward the torchlight. His touch burned like fire and ice simultaneously. The question is, do you know what times you times are? Before she could answer, he released her and turned to his guards. Bring her inside. Put her in the East Tower. No chains. His gaze returned to Kira, unreadable and intense, and make sure the seers are informed. Tell them the prophecy has walked through our gates of her own accord. Kira's blood turned to ice. What prophecy? Thorne's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. The one that says you'll be my destruction, Miss Ashenblade. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. Welcome to Shadowmere. Try not to kill me before we've had a proper introduction. Then he was gone, striding back toward the fortress, leaving Kira kneeling in the mud with questions burning through her mind and a terrible certainty settling in her chest. She'd come looking for her sister. She'd found something far more dangerous, her destiny. The East Tower room was nothing like a prison cell. Soft furs covered the bed, a fire crackled in the hearth, and someone had left fresh clothes folded on a chair, soft leather pants and a tunic in deep forest green. Kira touched the fabric hesitantly, half expecting it to vanish like a dream. "The Alpha King wants you comfortable," a young woman said from the doorway. She had kind eyes and carried a tray of steaming food. "I'm Lyra. I'll be attending to your needs during your stay." My stay," Kira repeated hollowly. "You mean my imprisonment?" Power's expression remained carefully neutral as she set the tray down. "You're not a prisoner, Miss Ashenblade. Prisoners don't get the East Tower. They don't get private attendance or invitations to dine with the Alpha." "He wants to dine with me?" Kira's stomach twisted. "Why?" "Perhaps to determine if the prophecy is true." Lyra moved to the window, gazing out at the sprawling territory below. The seers predicted his death would come at the hands of a woman bearing the moon's mark. You can imagine how many have tried to claim that distinction for their own gain. Kira sank onto the bed. "I didn't come here to kill anyone. I came for my sister, Sarah. She disappeared 6 months ago. Something shifted in Lyra's expression. "Sarah Ashenblade was here," she said quietly. "She worked in the archives. Then one night, she vanished without a word." "What was she researching?" "Ancient bloodlines, prophecies, the original pacts." Lyra hesitated. "Things the Alpha King himself has spent years studying." Before Kira could press further, a commotion erupted in the courtyard below. Shouts, then screams. Kira rushed to the window in time to see 3 massive wolves tear through the gates, their fur matted with blood, eyes wild with rage. "Rogues," Lyra breathed, her face going pale. "They've never attacked the fortress before." The guards scrambled to respond, but the rogues moved with terrifying speed and coordination. One lunged at a young guard who'd been carrying supplies, jaws snapping inches from his throat. Kira didn't think. She grabbed the iron poker from the fireplace and ran, Lyra's protests fading behind her. She burst into the courtyard just as the rogue's teeth found purchase on the guard's shoulder. "Hey!" Kira shouted, swinging the poker with all her strength. It connected with the wolf's skull with a sickening crack. The beast released the guard and turned on her lips, peeled back in a snarl. Terror froze her in place. This was it. She was going to die in a strange territory. Her sister still missing, the prophecy unfulfilled. Then a blur of black fur and fury slammed into the rogue, driving it to the ground. The black wolf was enormous, easily twice the size of the attackers, with silver eyes that gleamed with an intelligence no animal should possess. It moved with brutal efficiency, protecting Kira while systematically eliminating each threat. Within minutes, the rogues lay dead or fleeing. The black wolf stood among the carnage, breathing hard, blood staining its midnight fur. Then, before Kira's disbelieving eyes, it began to change. Bones cracked and reformed, fur receded. Within moments, Thorne Nightshade stood where the wolf had been, completely naked and utterly magnificent. His silver eyes fixed on her, with an intensity that stole her breath. "You," he growled, stalking toward her, "are either incredibly brave or astronomically stupid." His gaze dropped to the poker still clutched in her white-knuckled grip. "Which is it, little Omega?" Kira's voice came out as a whisper. "I couldn't just watch him die." "Thanks for watch him. I couldn't just watch him die." Something softened in Thorne's expression. He reached out slowly, as if approaching a skittish animal, and carefully pried the poker from her fingers. "No," he murmured. "I don't suppose you could." His thumb brushed across her knuckles, and electricity shot up her arm. Most people run from rogues. You ran toward them. Most people aren't looking for answers desperately enough to risk everything. She shot back, finding her voice. A smile tugged at his lips, genuine this time. Not the cold calculation from before. No, they're not. He glanced down at himself, seemingly unbothered by his nudity. I should dress before we scandalize Lyra further. Kira's cheeks flamed as she realized she'd been staring. You're the Alpha King. Don't you have people to handle threats like that? I am the threat, he said simply. Then his expression turned serious. The rogues were after you specifically. They came straight for the East Tower. His silver eyes searched hers. Someone knows you're here, Kira Ashenblade. Someone who wants you dead before the prophecy can be fulfilled. But I don't even know what the prophecy says. Thorne stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. Then perhaps, he said softly, it's time I told you. Meet me in the library after you've changed. We have much to discuss. He turned to leave, then paused. And Kira, thank you. For saving my guard. For not running. For being. He seemed to struggle for the right word. Unexpected. As he strode away, guards hurrying to bring him clothes, Kira stood trembling in the courtyard. The prophecy said she would destroy him. But the way he'd looked at her just now, like she was something precious rather than dangerous, that terrified her more than any prophecy ever could. The library was a cathedral of knowledge, towering shelves disappearing into shadows, ancient texts bound in leather and sealed with wax. Kira found Thorne standing before a massive table covered in scrolls and documents, now dressed in black leather, that somehow made him even more imposing than his nakedness had. Punctual, he observed without turning. I appreciate that. You said you'd tell me about the prophecy. Kira forced herself to approach, though every instinct warned her to keep distance between them. I want to know why everyone thinks I'm here to kill you, Paces, because the seers are never wrong. Thorne finally faced her, his expression unreadable. 300 years ago, during the Great Pack Wars, a seer named Morgana spoke a vision that would shape the future of all wolfkind. He unrolled an ancient scroll, the parchment yellowed with age. Read it. Kira leaned over the table, squinting at the faded script. Asterisk. When moon marks flesh and silver meets gold, the daughter of Ash shall rise. She who walks between worlds, bearing the blood of ancients, shall stand before the Shadow King. By her hand shall his reign end through death or transformation, through destruction or rebirth. The choice lies not in fate, but in the heart that dares to challenge destiny itself. Asterisk. Her hands trembled as she finished reading. Daughter of Ash, Ashenblade. Your family name is no coincidence, Thorne confirmed. The Ashenblade line descends from one of the original packs, the Moon Blessed. They were wiped out during the wars, or so everyone believed. My mother never mentioned any of this, because your mother was in hiding. Thorne pulled out another document, this one more recent. Sarah discovered this truth 6 months ago while working in my archives. She found evidence that the Ashenblade line carried something unique, a genetic marker that allows them to nullify an alpha's power. Xiomara's stories begin with power comset intelligence. Xiomara's talk for them said 5 herfly. Xiomara's talk for them said a 5 wise. Kira's blood ran cold. Nullify, strip them of their authority, their connection to the pack, even their ability to shift. His silver eyes bore into hers. In essence, you have the potential to destroy everything that makes me what I am. But I didn't know. The ability manifests under specific conditions. Strong emotion, physical contact with an alpha. And most importantly, he moved around the table, closing the distance between them. A bond. Pauses. Whether formed through blood, loyalty, or... He paused, something dangerous flickering in his gaze. Other connections. Kira stepped back, her spine hitting the bookshelf. Why are you telling me this? Why not just kill me and be done with it? Because I don't believe in prophecies, Thorne said flatly. I believe in choices. And because... He braced his hands on either side of her head, caging her in without touching. Sarah didn't come here by accident. She was investigating something else. Something that connects both our families. What do you mean? Your sister discovered evidence of a conspiracy wolves within my own territory, working to overthrow my reign. They're using the prophecy as a weapon, claiming I've grown too powerful, too dangerous. They want to install a new Alpha King, one more, malleable to their interests. Kira's mind raced, and Sarah found proof of this. She found names, locations, evidence of meetings held in secret. Thorne's expression darkened. Then she vanished. Either they killed her to silence her, or she's being held somewhere, Kira finished, hope and fear warring in her chest. You think she's still alive? I think she knew too much to kill quickly. They'd want to know what she'd told others, where she'd hidden her evidence. His gaze softened slightly. Cation. I've had my best trackers searching for months. The trail went cold at the northern border. Why should I trust you? Kira demanded. For all I know, you're the one who took her. If I wanted to harm your sister, I wouldn't have spent half a year and considerable resources searching for her. Thorne stepped back, giving her space. But you don't have to trust me. In fact, I'd prefer you didn't. Not yet. Trust makes you vulnerable, and I need you sharp if we're going to find Sarah. We? A slow smile curved his lips. Did you think I'd let the prophesied instrument of my destruction wander my territory unsupervised? No, Kira Ashenblade. You and I are going to work together. You'll help me root out the conspiracy, and I'll help you find your sister. And the prophecy? We'll deal with destiny when it arrives. His expression turned fierce. Until then, I have a proposition. Stay here. Let me teach you about your heritage, your abilities. Learn to control what you are before someone uses it against both of us. But Kira studied him, this Alpha King who should have killed her on sight but instead offered partnership. What's the catch? Powers. The catch, Thorne said quietly, is that the closer we work together, the stronger your ability to destroy me becomes. Every day you spend in my presence, every moment we're bonded through common purpose, the prophecy grows more likely to fulfill itself. He met her gaze steadily. I'm asking you to become the very thing that could end me. Imposter. The question is, are you brave enough to accept? Outside the library windows, storm clouds gathered. Somewhere in this territory, her sister was either dead or captive. And standing before her was a king offering answers wrapped in danger. Kira straightened her spine, channeling every ounce of Ashenblade's stubbornness her mother had instilled in her. I accept your proposition, Alpha King. But know this: if I discover you've harmed Sarah, prophecy or not, I will find a way to destroy you. Thorne's smile was approving, almost proud. I would expect nothing less. Welcome to the pack, Kira Ashenblade. May the moon have mercy on us both. The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of discovery and adaptation. Thorne had assigned Kira a position in the archives, ostensibly to continue Sarah's research, but really to give her legitimate access to the fortress's inner workings. Each morning, she arrived at the vast document repository, and each evening, she reported her findings to the Alpha King in his private study. You're learning quickly, Lyra observed one afternoon, as Kira navigated the complex filing system with increasing confidence. Most newcomers take months to understand our organizational methods. My sister was always the meticulous one, Kira replied, running her fingers along ancient spine labels. I just have to think like her. She paused, pulling out a leather-bound journal. Lyra, do you remember Sarah mentioning someone named Davron? The attendant's expression tightened. Davron Ironclaw. He's one of the Alpha King's counselors. Why? His name appears repeatedly in Sarah's notes, always connected to the Northern Territories. Kira flipped through the pages. And look, she marked this date 6 months ago, the day before she disappeared. Meeting with DI, regarding Northern supply routes. Something isn't right. Before Lyra could respond, a commotion echoed from the training grounds below. Kira moved to the window and saw pack members gathering in a circle, their energy crackling with anticipation. Challenge match, Lyra explained, joining her. Anyone can challenge for rank within the pack hierarchy. It's how we maintain order, strength, and skill determine position, not birthright alone. In the circle's center, 2 wolves circled each other. One was massive, scarred, clearly experienced. The other was younger, smaller, but moved with desperate determination. The younger one is Finn, Lyra said quietly. He's been trying to rise in rank for months. His mother is sick, and higher-ranked wolves get better access to the healers. Kira watched as Finn lunged, only to be slammed to the ground with brutal efficiency. He rose, blood streaming from a gash above his eye, and attacked again and again. Each time, the older wolf put him down. He's going to get himself killed, Kira breathed. He's going to keep trying until he does. Lyra agreed sadly. Pride is a dangerous thing. Something in Kira snapped. She'd spent weeks watching, learning, staying carefully within the boundaries Thorne had set, powers. But this a young wolf fighting for his mother's life, while the pack watched like it was entertainment this she couldn't ignore. She ran down the stairs and pushed through the crowd. Stop! The older wolf turned, surprise flickering across his features before they hardened with disdain. The Omega speaks? This is pack business, outsider. Return to your books. This isn't a fair fight, Kira shot back. Look at him, he can barely stand. Then he should yield. The warrior's voice was cold. Weakness has no place in pack hierarchy. There's a difference between weakness and desperation. Kira stepped into the circle, her heart pounding. If you're so strong, prove it against someone who isn't half dead from exhaustion. Shocked silence fell over the crowd. Then, inevitably, someone laughed. The sound spread like wildfire. You? Ja. The warrior's eyes gleamed with amusement. An Omega who can't even shift? What exactly do you propose to prove, little girl? That strength isn't just about claws and teeth. Kira forced her voice steady, though her hands trembled. Or are you afraid to face someone who might actually outsmart you? Fatalities. The warrior's expression darkened. You have no idea what you've just done. Let her try. Thorne's voice cut through the crowd like a blade. He stood at the edge of the circle, arms crossed, his silver eyes unreadable. If Miss Ashenblade wants to challenge Garrick, let her. What harm could one Omega possibly do? Was that approval in his tone? Or was he testing her? Garrick shifted into fighting stance. Your funeral, little Omega. What happened next occurred in a blur. Garrick lunged, and Kira did something she'd learned from years of surviving. As the weakest in her birth pack, she didn't try to overpower him. She redirected his momentum, using his own strength against him. When his clawed hand swept toward her throat, she dropped low and kicked his knee from the side. When he recovered and charged again, she grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it in his eyes. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't fair. But when Garrick finally stumbled, temporarily blinded and off balance, Kira pressed her advantage. She swept his legs and drove her elbow into the pressure point at his neck. Not hard enough to seriously injure, but enough to make her point. Garrick hit the ground, and Kira planted her foot on his chest. "Yield," she demanded, breathless. The warrior stared up at her in shock. Then, incredibly, he laughed. "I yield." He sat up, rubbing his neck ruefully. "By the moon you fight dirty. Mo." "I fight to win," Kira corrected, offering him a hand up. "And I fight smart. Maybe that's a kind of strength too." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, surprise, respect, even admiration. Finn approached, supported by friends, and bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, Miss Ashenblade. I won't forget this." Getting As the crowd dispersed, Thorne appeared at Kira's side. "That was either very brave or very foolish." "You're the one who said I could try," she pointed out. "I said you could challenge him. I didn't think you'd win." His lips quirked. "You continue to surprise me, Kira Ashenblade. The pack is already talking about the Omega who bested one of my best warriors through wit instead of strength. Is that a problem?" On the contrary. His smile was genuine now, warm in a way that made her chest tighten. "You've just earned something no amount of my approval could have given you their respect. Welcome to the pack. Truly, this time." Later that evening, as Kira soaked her bruised body in a hot bath, Lyra brought news. "Finn's mother is being moved to the upper healing ward. Better treatment, better medicines." She smiled. "Word has spread about what you did. You have allies now, Miss Ashenblade. Real ones." Kira closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the day settle over her. She'd come to Shadowmere looking for her sister. Instead, she was finding something else entirely, a place where she might actually belong. But in the back of her mind, Sarah's words echoed. Asterisk. The Alpha knows what we are. Asterisk. And the prophecy waited, patient and inevitable as the turning moon. The package arrived at dawn, delivered by a messenger who refused to meet Kira's eyes. Inside was a dress, midnight blue silk that shimmered like starlight, with silver embroidery tracing patterns of moons and wolves along the bodice. "The Alpha King requests your presence at tonight's council dinner," Lyra explained, her expression carefully neutral. "It's a formal affair. All the territory leaders will be there." Kira touched the fabric hesitantly. "Why does he want me there?" "Because half the territory has heard about you besting Garrick, and the other half is curious about the Omega bearing the moon's mark." Lyra's smile was knowing. "And perhaps because the Alpha King himself wants you there. He's been different since you arrived." "Different how?" "More present, more engaged." Lyra began preparing Kira's hair. "For years, he's ruled with cold efficiency, fair but distant. Now he actually attends training sessions. He walks the markets. He smiles." She met Kira's eyes in the mirror. "You've reminded him what it means to be part of a pack, not just its king." That evening, Kira descended the grand staircase feeling exposed in the elegant dress. The great hall buzzed with conversation that died the moment she appeared. Dozens of eyes tracked her progress, assessing, judging, wondering. Then she saw Thorne, and the rest of the room faded. He stood near the head table in formal attire, black jacket with silver threading that matched his eyes, his dark hair pulled back to reveal the sharp planes of his face. When their gazes met, something electric passed between them, a pull so strong it was almost physical. "Miss Ashenblade." His voice was formal, but his eyes burned. "Allow me to introduce you to my council." The next hour was a careful dance of politics. Kira met Davron Ironclaw, a silver-haired wolf with calculating eyes who watched her too closely. She exchanged pleasantries with Lady Meredith of the Eastern Territories, whose warmth seemed genuine. And she endured subtle jabs from Counselor Brecken, who clearly viewed her presence as an insult to pack tradition. An omega at the high table, Brecken said with false pleasantness. How progressive of you, Alpha King. Miss Ashenblade has proven herself valuable to this pack, Thorne replied, his tone brooking no argument. Her insights into our historical records have already uncovered several discrepancies in our supply chain documentation. Davron's expression flickered just for a moment, but Kira caught it. Fear? Anger? Historical records? Davron's laugh was too casual. Surely the Alpha King has more pressing concerns than dusty archives. I've found that the past often illuminates the present, Kira interjected smoothly. For instance, I recently discovered that northern supply routes were altered 6 months ago. Around the same time, my sister disappeared while researching those same routes. She met Davron's gaze directly. Curious coincidence. Wouldn't you say, Counselor? The temperature in the room dropped. Thorne's eyes gleamed with approval, while Davron's smile turned glacial. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation, Davron said carefully. Though I'm surprised the Alpha King allows accusations to be leveled at his own council based on an Omega's suppositions. I allow the truth to be spoken in my hall, Thorne said quietly, dangerously, regardless of who speaks it. Before the tension could escalate further, music began. Traditional pack songs played by a small orchestra. Couples moved onto the dance floor, and Kira found herself being led away by Thorne's firm hand at her elbow. That was reckless, he murmured as they moved into position. Confronting Davron publicly. You're the one who brought me here. Kira countered, hyper-aware of his hand at her waist, the scant inches between them. What did you expect? Exactly what you did. His smile was wolfish. I wanted to see his reaction. You've just confirmed that Davron is nervous about what you might find. Prod it is. They moved together with surprising ease, his lead confident, her follow instinctive. You're using me as bait. You're using me as bait. I'm using us both as bait, he corrected. Why do you think I've been so visible with you these past weeks? Every walk through the market, every training session we attend together, every moment we spend in each other's company sends a message to the conspirators that I trust you, that I'm vulnerable to you. Kira stumbled slightly, and his grip tightened, pulling her closer. Their faces were inches apart now, close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his silver eyes. You're trying to draw them out, she whispered. I'm trying to force their hand before they're ready. His voice dropped lower. And I'm trying to understand why being near you makes it increasingly difficult to maintain the distance I know I should keep. Her breath caught. Thorne. Don't. His thumb traced a small circle at her waist, the touch burning through silk. Don't tell me this is just strategy, or obligation, or the prophecy pulling us together. I've lived long enough to recognize truth when I feel it. What truth? Kira barely recognized her own voice. That you haunt me. His confession was raw, unguarded. I find myself listening for your footsteps in the archives. I wake from dreams where you're beside me, and the disappointment of your absence feels like a physical wound. Every instinct I have demands I claim you, protect you, keep you close. But every rational thought reminds me that the closer you are, the more power you have to destroy me. Kira's pulse raced. I don't want to destroy you. No? His eyes searched hers intensely. Then what do you want, Kira Ashenblade? The question hung between them, weighted with possibility and danger. Before Kira could answer, the music ended, and polite applause rippled through the hall. Thorne stepped back, composure sliding back into place like armor. Thank you for the dance, Miss Ashenblade. I trust you'll continue your research with your usual thoroughness. He walked away, leaving Kira standing alone on the dance floor, her heart pounding and her mind reeling. Careful, little Omega. Davern appeared at her elbow, his voice silky with threat. Playing with kings is a dangerous game. One wrong move, and you might find yourself burned. Is that a warning, counselor? Kira met his gaze steadily. Or a threat? Wudge. Arcio Maras? Away. Is that a warning? Or a threat? Consider it. Friendly advice. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Your sister learned too much for her own good. I'd hate to see history repeat itself. He disappeared into the crowd before Kira could respond, leaving her with the chilling certainty that Davron knew exactly what had happened to Sarah, and that Kira was getting close to discovering the truth. 2 days after the council dinner, a young wolf burst into the archives, his face pale with panic. Miss Ashenblade. It's Finn's little sister. She's fallen through the ice at Miller's Pond. The currents pulled her under. Kira was running before he finished speaking, Lyra close behind. They reached the pond to find a crowd gathered at the frozen edge, Finn chest deep in frigid water, desperately diving again and again. How long? Kira demanded, already removing her heavy cloak. 5 minutes, maybe more? Someone answered. The current's too strong? Kira dove in before anyone could stop her. The cold was a physical shock, driving the air from her lungs. She forced herself deeper, following the dark shadow of the underwater current. There, a small form caught against submerged roots. Kira's lungs burned as she worked to free the child, precious seconds slipping away. Finally, the girl came loose. Kira kicked hard, breaking the surface just as her vision started to gray. Hands pulled them both onto the ice. The child wasn't breathing. Move! Thorne appeared, dropping to his knees beside the girl. Power. He performed compressions with practiced efficiency, counting under his breath. Come on, little one. Come back. Nothing. Palm. Kira's hands moved of their own accord, pressing against the child's chest. Warmth flooded through her palms, strange, electric, ancient. The crescent mark on her shoulder blade burned like fire. The girl convulsed, water pouring from her mouth as she gasped for air. Shocked silence fell over the crowd. Thorne stared at Kira, recognition and something like awe in his silver eyes. What did you? I don't know, Kira whispered, staring at her trembling hands. I just felt something, the moon's blessing, an elderly wolf breathed. The old magic. I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime. Finn gathered his sister close, tears streaming down his face. Thank you, he choked out. Both of you, thank you. As the crowd dispersed, Thorne wrapped his cloak around Kira's shivering shoulders. We need to talk. Now. He led her to his private chambers, a bold breach of propriety that neither acknowledged. Once inside, he built up the fire while Kira changed behind a screen into dry clothes he'd provided. Your ability isn't just about nullifying power, Thorne said without preamble. It's about manipulating life force itself, healing, destroying. 2 sides of the same coin. 2. Kira emerged from behind the screen, drowning in his oversized shirt. I've never done anything like that before, Port, because you've never been in a situation desperate enough to trigger it. He poured them both whiskey with shaking hands the first time she'd seen him. Anything less than perfectly controlled. Do you understand what this means? You're not just a threat to me. You're a threat to the entire power structure of wolf society. I would never. I know. He turned to face her, and the raw vulnerability in his expression stopped her heart. I know you wouldn't. But others will fear what you can do. Davron and his conspirators will see you as either a weapon to control or a threat to eliminate. Kira moved closer, drawn by the tremor in his voice. Then what do we do? We? A bitter laugh escaped him. You should run, Kira, as far and as fast as you can. Because I'm about to do something incredibly selfish. He set down his glass and closed the distance between them. I'm going to tell you the truth, and then you'll truly have the power to destroy me. What truth? Thorne's hand rose to cup her face, his touch achingly gentle. That I'm falling in love with you. That every moment you're near makes the wolf inside me howl with need. That when I saw you dive into that water, risking your life for a child you barely know, I realized I would burn this entire territory to ash before I'd let anything happen to you. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. The prophecy says you'll destroy me. I'm starting to believe it because you've already destroyed every defense I've ever built. Kira's breath shattered. Thorne. I know the risks, he continued, his voice rough. I know that every day we grow closer gives you more power over me. I know that loving you might literally be the death of me. But I've lived 3 decades in careful control, always isolated, always alone. Then you walked through my gates with fire in your eyes and stubbornness in your spine. And suddenly I'm questioning whether surviving is worth it if I never truly live. Tears burned in Kira's eyes. I came here to find my sister, to uncover your secrets, to complete a mission. She placed her hand over his heart, feeling it race beneath her palm. I never expected to find someone who sees me not as a weapon or a threat or a prophesied destroyer, but as myself. Messy and imperfect and real. You are magnificent, Thorne said fiercely, and terrifying, and everything I never knew I needed. Kira rose on her toes, closing the final distance between them. Then stop talking and kiss me, you impossible man. His lips claimed hers with a hunger that had been building for weeks. This wasn't the careful distance they'd maintained, or the political performance at the dinner. This was raw, desperate need, his hands tangling in her hair, her fingers clutching his shirt, both of them trying to get closer despite the physical impossibility. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Thorne rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything. I know. It's the prophecy. Can wait until tomorrow, Kira interrupted. Tonight, I just want this. Us. Real and uncomplicated and... A howl split the night, the warning call that meant danger. Thorne was at the window in an instant, his body tensing. Fire, he growled. The archives are burning. Kira's blood turned to ice. Sarah's research. They ran together, but even from a distance, Kira could see the flames consuming the building where she'd spent weeks uncovering the truth. By the time they arrived, pack members had formed bucket chains, but the fire was too advanced. It's gone, Lyra sobbed, her face streaked with soot. All of it. Every document, every record. Thorne's hand found Kira's, squeezing tightly. This wasn't an accident. No, Kira agreed, watching years of history turn to ash. This was a message. Someone wants to make sure we never find the truth about Syrah or the conspiracy. As the archives collapsed in a shower of sparks, Kira felt Thorne's arm wrap protectively around her shoulders. They'd crossed a line tonight, admitted feelings that made them both vulnerable. And now someone was willing to destroy everything to keep them from discovering what Sarah had died or been taken for knowing. The war had truly begun. The morning after the fire, Kira woke to find Thorne gone. Not just from his chambers where she'd fallen asleep curled against him, but from the fortress entirely. He'd left before dawn, Lyra explained, for an emergency council meeting in the Northern Territories. He didn't say when he'd return. Did he leave a message? Kira asked, trying to ignore the ache in her chest. Lyra's expression was sympathetic. He said to tell you it's safer if you maintain distance for now. With the archives burned and tensions rising, your association with him makes you a target. Safer. The word felt like a slap. Last night, he'd confessed his feelings with devastating honesty. This morning, he'd retreated behind walls of duty and protection. The pattern continued for 2 weeks. Thorne returned from the Northern Territories, but he might as well have stayed away. He avoided the training grounds when she was there. He took his meals in his study. When their paths inevitably crossed, he was coldly professional, his silver eyes revealing nothing. "He's protecting you," Lyra insisted one evening as Kira stared out her window toward his darkened chambers. "The conspirators are watching. The more distance he maintains, the less valuable you are as leverage against him. The more distance he maintains, 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 he maintains, the more distance he maintains, the more distance he maintains, the more." Or he realized he made a mistake? Kira said bitterly. Confessing feelings to the woman prophesied to destroy him probably seemed like a bad idea in the light of day. But at night, she heard him. The pacing in his chambers, the low growls of frustration, and once, late when she couldn't sleep, the sound of her name spoken like a prayer or a curse, Contarius. He was suffering too. Somehow, that made it worse. Meanwhile, Kira had thrown herself into investigating Sarah's disappearance through other means. Without the archives, she relied on interviews with pack members who'd known her sister. The picture that emerged was troubling. Sarah had been seen arguing with Davron 2 days before she vanished. She'd sent a package to an address in the human city, contents unknown. And she'd told Finn's mother that if anything happened to her, Kira should look where the ash meets shadow. "Where the ash meets shadow," Kira repeated to Lyra. "What does that mean?" "I have no idea." But Lyra hesitated. "There's something else. The servants are talking. They say Davron has been making frequent trips to the old fortress ruins beyond the northern border. The place wolves avoid because it's supposed to be cursed." Kira's pulse quickened. That's where the trail went cold when Thorne's trackers searched for Sarah. "It's also forbidden territory," Lyra warned. "The Alpha King declared it off limits years ago. If you're caught there, then I won't get caught." That night, Kira slipped from the fortress under cover of darkness. The northern border was 3 hours away on foot, but she'd studied the maps obsessively. She knew the route. What she hadn't counted on was the storm. Halfway to her destination, the sky opened up, not rain, but sleet that cut like knives and turned the ground treacherous. She pushed forward anyway, driven by weeks of frustration and the desperate need to find answers. The old fortress appeared through the storm like a specter, crumbling stone walls overtaken by forest, windows dark as empty eye sockets. Kira approached carefully, every instinct screaming danger. Inside, the ruins were less decayed than they appeared from outside. Someone had been here recently. She found evidence of occupation supplies, sleeping rolls, and most damning documents bearing Davron's seal. Then she found the cell, deep in the fortress basement, behind a door that required all her strength to open. The room was empty now, but signs of recent imprisonment remained: chains bolted to the wall, scratches in the stone as if someone had marked days, and something that made Kira's blood run cold. A piece of torn fabric, forest green, embroidered with ash leaves. The same pattern Sarah had worn on the cloak Kira had given her 3 years ago. "She was here," Kira breathed. "They kept her here." Very astute. Kira whirled to find Davron blocking the doorway, 2 massive wolves flanking him. His smile was cold triumph. I wondered how long it would take you to find this place, he said conversationally. Your sister lasted 3 months before she tried to escape. Sadly, she didn't survive the attempt. He shook his head in mock sympathy. The northern wilderness is so dangerous for lone wolves. Rage flooded Kira's veins, hot and consuming. You killed her. She killed herself with her stubborn refusal to cooperate. All we wanted was information about your bloodline, about how to harness your ability. Davron stepped closer. Now, you're going to finish what she started. You're going to help us overthrow Thorne Nightshade, or you'll end up buried in the same unmarked grave as your sister. Kira's hand moved to the knife at her belt, the one Thorne had given her weeks ago for protection. But before she could draw it, a howl split the night. Not a warning howl. A hunting call, Powers. Davron's expression flickered with fear. Impossible. He's supposed to be in the Eastern Territories. The wall exploded inward in a shower of stone and timber. A massive black wolf stood in the opening, silver eyes blazing with fury that bordered on madness. Thorne had found her. The black wolf's snarl shook the ruins. Davron's guards shifted immediately, moving to defend their master, but they were outmatched. Thorne tore through them, with brutal efficiency, not killing, but incapacitating, his focus never leaving Davron. Call him off, Davron shouted, backing toward a hidden exit. Or, I'll ensure you never learn where we buried the Ashenblade girl. Thorne froze, his massive head swinging toward Kira. In his wolf eyes, she saw the terrible question. Asterisk. Is it true? Asterisk. He's lying? Kira said, her voice breaking. Sarah's dead. I found her cloak. The words choked off as grief finally overwhelmed her. Pa. Davron used her distraction to bolt through the hidden passage. Thorne moved to follow, but Kira grabbed his fur. Let him go, please. I can't, I need. The wolf's form shimmered and changed. Then Thorne was human again, naked and furious, pulling her into his arms as she finally allowed herself to break. All the weeks of control, of hope, of desperate searching gone. Sarah was dead. I'm sorry. Thorne murmured into her hair, his voice raw. I'm so sorry, Kira. If I'd known she was here, if I'd searched harder. You didn't know. Kira clutched him tighter, kneading his solid warmth against the cold emptiness, threatening to consume her. Neither of us knew. They stayed like that for long minutes, until the sound of approaching wolves forced them apart. Thorne's pack arrived guards he'd apparently brought when he'd tracked her here. How did you find me? Kira asked as he dressed in clothes someone brought. I've had wolves watching you since the fire, he admitted. I knew you wouldn't let this go. When you left tonight, I followed. His expression turned fierce. Did you truly think I'd abandoned you? That I could stay away when every instinct demanded I protect you? You seemed perfectly capable of avoiding me for 2 weeks. Because being near you and not touching you was torture. Thorne growled. Because every moment we spend together makes the bond stronger, makes you more dangerous to me. But I can't, he grabbed her shoulders. I can't watch you walk into danger alone. I can't pretend I don't feel what I feel. Even if it kills me, Kira, I choose you. Before she could respond, one of his guards approached. Alpha King, we found something in the Eastern Chamber. You need to see this. What they'd found was a laboratory of sorts, tables covered with vials, notes, and most disturbing, samples of blood labeled with dates and initials. K.A. Kira Ashenblade. S.A. Sarah Ashenblade. They were experimenting on her, Kira whispered, horror crawling up her spine. Trying to understand our bloodline. Thorne examined the notes, his expression darkening. It's worse than that. They weren't just studying your ability to nullify alpha power, they were trying to replicate it. Create a weapon that could be used against any alpha they chose. But why? Kira demanded. What's the endgame? Control. A new voice spoke from the doorway. They turned to find Lady Meredith, the Eastern Territory leader, standing with a contingent of wolves. Her expression was grim. Davron and his faction believe the Alpha King system is outdated. They want to return to the old ways council rule, power distributed among territory leaders. And they need to eliminate me first, Thorne concluded. But killing an Alpha King outright would cause civil war. However, if they had a weapon that could strip my power first, they could depose you legally. Kira finished. Make it appear as though you'd lost the moon's favor. Install a new system with themselves at the top. Meredith nodded. I've been investigating the conspiracy for months, gathering evidence. When I heard about the fire and Kira's capture, I knew we were running out of time. She met Thorne's gaze steadily. They're planning to move during the Blood Moon ceremony next week. They'll have gathered all the territory leaders in one place. That's when they'll strike. How many are involved? Thorne's voice was dangerously calm. At least 5 of the 12 territory leaders, plus half the council. Meredith's expression was apologetic. I'm sorry, my king. The rot goes deeper than we thought. Kira watched Thorne process this betrayal, his shoulders rigid with tension. Then we'll root it out completely. Every last one of them. Every last one of them. There's another option. Davron's voice crackled through a communication device left on the laboratory table he'd planned this reveal. I have something you want. Thorne Nightshade. Something more valuable than your pride or your throne. Ice flooded Kira's veins. What is he talking about? I'm talking about the fact that Sarah Ashenblade isn't dead, Davron said, cold satisfaction in his tone. The burial was a lie. She's very much alive, and she'll stay that way if Kira agrees to my terms. Kira's legs nearly gave out. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself why we'd kill our only successful test subject. Sarah cooperated eventually, taught us much about your bloodline. She's currently secured in a location only I know, receiving medical care for the complications of our experiments. His voice hardened. Here's my offer. Kira submits to the same testing, helps us complete our weapon, and Sarah goes free. Refuse, and your sister dies slowly and painfully. Don't listen to him, Thorne said immediately. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap, Davron agreed cheerfully. But it's also Kira's only chance to save her sister. You have until the blood moon to decide. Come alone to the coordinates I'm sending. Submit willingly, and Sarah lives. Bring your Alpha King or any guards, and I'll kill her before you reach the door. The device went dead. Kira stared at it, her mind racing. Sarah was alive, suffering, experimented on, but alive. And the only way to save her was to give Davron exactly what he wanted: access to her blood, her power, her ability to destroy Thorne. No, Thorne said, reading her expression. Absolutely not. We'll find another way. What other way? Kira's voice rose. He'll kill her, Thorne. My sister is alive, and she's being tortured because of me, because of what we are. I have to. You don't have to sacrifice yourself. Thorne grabbed her arms. We'll hunt him down. We'll tear apart every building in this territory until we find her. And if we're too late? If he kills her while we're searching? Tears streamed down Kira's face. I can't lose her again. I can't know she's alive and do nothing. Doing this won't save her, Thorne said desperately. It'll just give Davron 2 Ashenblade women to experiment on instead of 1, and once he has the weapon he needs, he'll kill you both anyway. Kira pulled free of his grasp. Then, what do you suggest? Because right now, all I hear is you asking me to let my sister die to protect your throne. The words hung in the air, cruel and unfair. Thorne's expression shuddered, pain flickering in his silver eyes before he locked it away. Is that what you think? His voice was quiet, dangerous. That I value my position over your sister's life? Over yours? I don't know what to think, Kira said, exhaustion and grief making her reckless. 2 weeks ago, you said you loved me. Then you disappeared behind walls of duty and distance. Now you're asking me to abandon the only family I have left for what? For you? For a throne you might lose anyway. Thorne stepped back as if she'd struck him. I see. His expression went cold, remote. Then perhaps the prophecy was right all along. You will be my destruction not through your power, but through the choices you make. He turned and strode from the laboratory, leaving Kira alone with her impossible decision and the terrible knowledge that she'd just pushed away the only person who'd ever truly seen her. Lady Meredith approached quietly. He loves you more than his throne, she said gently. More than his life. That's why he's afraid. Because he knows that if you walk into Davron's trap, he'll follow, and that's exactly what they're counting on. Kira sank onto a bench, her head in her hands. 5 days until the blood moon. 5 days to choose between saving her sister and protecting the man she loved. The prophecy had promised she would destroy the Alpha King. It seemed destiny was finally demanding its due. Kira didn't return to the fortress. Instead, she spent 2 days in Meredith's territory, gathering information and forming a plan that grew more desperate with each passing hour. The Eastern Territory leader had provided maps, contacts, and resources. But most importantly, she'd provided the truth Thorne had been too afraid to say. He's dying, Meredith explained over tea in her private study. The bond between you has grown stronger than he anticipated. Your proximity, your acceptance, the intimacy you've shared, it's created a soul bond, something even deeper than a mate bond. And because you're destined to destroy him, every day that bond strengthens is literally killing him. And Kira's cup shattered against the floor. What? The prophecy didn't specify how you'd destroy him. We all assumed it meant through your nullification ability that you'd strip his power and leave him vulnerable. But soul bonds work differently. They tie 2 lives together. If you die, he dies. If you're tortured, he feels it. If you willingly submit to Davron's experiments. Meredith met her gaze gravely. The agony would destroy Thorne's mind long before it destroyed his body. That's why he pulled away, Kira whispered. He knew. He's known since the night you healed Finn's sister. The moment your power fully manifested, the bond snapped into place. Meredith's expression softened. He's been trying to weaken it, to protect you from becoming the weapon Davron wants to use against him. Every moment of distance, every cold word, it was torture for him, but he thought it might save you both. Kira stood abruptly, pacing. Then we have to break the bond. There must be a way. There isn't. Not without killing one or both of you. Meredith stood as well. But there might be another option. Something Sarah was researching before she was taken. She produced a journal. Water-damaged and partially burned, but legible. We found this hidden in the ruins, sealed in a protective case. It's Sarah's research journal. Her last entry was the day before she disappeared. Kira's hands trembled as she took the journal, flipping to the marked page. Asterisk, I've found it. The answer. The Ashenblade ability doesn't just nullify or destroy, it transforms. Our ancestors weren't weapons. They were healers, mediators, bridges between human and wolf. The power to destroy is merely the shadow side of the power to remake. If Kira can learn to control both aspects, she won't have to destroy the Alpha King. She can transform the bond itself, make it a source of strength instead of destruction. But the transformation requires absolute trust, complete vulnerability from both parties, and a willingness to face what lies in the shadow of the soul. I've seen too much here. Learned too much. They're coming for me. If anything happens, Kira must know. The answer isn't in destroying the bond, it's in completing it. Quote, where the ash meets shadow, the truth waits. Asterisk. Where the ash meets shadow, Kira breathed. That's what she told Finn's mother. She was leaving a clue. Meredith nodded. I believe Ash refers to your family name, Ashenblade. Shadow refers to Shadowmere, Thorne's territory. Where they meet, she pointed to the map. There's only one place where the Ashenblade family lands historically bordered Shadowmere territory. A valley called Twilight Hollow, abandoned after the Pack Wars. That's where she hid the rest of her research, Kira said with certainty, and possibly where Davron is keeping her now. He'd want her close to her work. It's a 3-day journey from here, Meredith warned. And if Davron is there, he won't be alone. You'll need help. I can't ask Thorne, Kira said. The bond makes him too vulnerable. If Davron captures him, then ask his pack, a familiar voice said from the doorway. Finn stood there, now fully healed, with a group of wolves behind him, Garrick, Lyra, and a dozen others who'd come to respect Kira during her time in Shadowmere. We heard what happened, Finn said. The whole territory is talking about how Davron betrayed the Alpha King, how he's been torturing your sister. We're not letting you face this alone, Miss Ashenblade. Garrick stepped forward, the warrior she'd bested in the challenge circle. You fought for us when you didn't have to. Now we fight for you. That's what Pack means. Tears burned in Kira's eyes. Thorne will be furious if you disobey his orders to stay away from this. Then he can punish us later, Lyra said with a slight smile. After we've brought you and your sister home safely. Kira looked at these wolves who'd become her family, her pack. They were offering her what Thorne couldn't help without the burden of the bond, strength without the risk of destruction. Thank you, she whispered. All of you. The journey to Twilight Hollow was hard and fast, pushing through 2 nights with minimal rest. They arrived at dusk on the 3rd day to find a valley shrouded in mist, ancient ruins rising from the fog like bones from flesh. Pow. This place feels wrong, Garrick muttered, his hackles raised. Cursed. Not cursed, Kira said, feeling something stir in her blood, a resonance, an awakening. Waiting. This is where my ancestors lived before the wars, where they practiced the old magic. They found the entrance to an underground chamber hidden beneath the ruins. Inside, the walls were covered in ancient script and diagrams showing the Ashenblade family tree, their abilities, their purpose. And in the center of the chamber, preserved by some forgotten magic, was Sarah. She hung suspended in a crystalline cage, unconscious but alive, her body marked with the evidence of Davron's experiments. Kira ran forward, pressing her hands against the crystal. Sarah, wake up. Her sister's eyes fluttered open gray like Kira's own, but clouded with pain and confusion. Kira? Her voice was barely audible. You shouldn't have come. It's a trap. He knew. You'd find me here. The chamber doors slammed shut. Lights blazed to life, revealing Davron standing on a platform above them, flanked by 24 wolves. Welcome home, Kira Ashenblade, he said with satisfaction. Or should I say, welcome to your true purpose. This chamber is where your ancestors were created. bred to be living weapons against the alphas who'd grown too powerful. And now, you'll fulfill that purpose. You'll destroy Thorne Nightshade, or everyone you love will die here today. Kira stood slowly, feeling power coil in her veins, ancient, vast, and terrible. The crescent mark on her shoulder blade burned like fire. You don't understand what you're unleashing. I understand perfectly. The Ashenblade power responds to strong emotion, love, fear, rage. And right now, I imagine you're feeling all three. Davrin's smile was cruel. So here's your choice. Use your power to shatter this chamber and free your sister. But doing so will send a psychic shockwave through your bond with Thorne that will destroy his mind. Or refuse, and watch as I execute your friends one by one, starting with the girl. As wolves grabbed Lyra, forcing her to her knees. Don't, Kira screamed. Please, I'll do whatever you want, just don't. Then choose Kira, your sister and friends, or the Alpha King, who was never truly yours to begin with. Kira looked at Sarah, trapped and suffering. At Lyra, terrified but trying to be brave. At the pack members who'd risked everything to help her. Then she felt the bond with Thorne, thrumming in her chest like a second heartbeat. The prophecy said she would destroy him, but Sarah's research offered another way. Transformation instead of destruction, completion instead of severing. It would require absolute trust, complete vulnerability, and a willingness to risk everything. Kira closed her eyes and did the only thing she could. She opened the bond fully, dropping every wall she'd built to protect Thorne from her power. Come to me, she whispered across their connection. I need you. I trust you. Come home. Davrin's laughter echoed through the chamber. Calling for your Alpha King won't save you. He's 3 days away, and you'll all be dead long before. The wall exploded inward. A massive black wolf stood in the opening, silver eyes blazing with fury, and something else absolute, unwavering love. Thorne had come, not despite the risk, but because of it. Because sometimes love meant facing destiny together, whatever the cost. Thorne shifted to human form, standing naked and magnificent amid the rubble, his silver eyes never leaving Kira. Step away from her, Davron. Last warning. Or what? Davron laughed. You'll attack with your mate standing in the crossfire? We both know you won't risk her life. You're right, Thorne agreed calmly. I won't, but she's not the vulnerable one here, is she? He looked at Kira, and something passed between them, understanding, acceptance, trust. Tell him, Kira. Tell him what you learned about your power. Kira felt the truth settle into her bones. Ancient knowledge awakening. The Ashenblade ability was never meant to destroy alphas, she said, her voice ringing through the chamber. Consted. It was meant to balance them. To prevent any one alpha from becoming tyrannical. We were mediators, healers, bridges between power and wisdom. Pretty words. Davron sneered. But we both know what you really are, a weapon. No. Sarah's voice, weak but clear, came from within her crystal prison. That's what you tried to make us. But you failed to understand the most important part. She met Kira's eyes. The power requires consent, complete trust. It doesn't work through force or coercion. It only works when both parties willingly submit to the transformation. Transformation? Davron's confidence flickered. The bond between an alpha and an Ashenblade doesn't destroy? Kira continued, power building in her voice, in her blood. It completes. When formed properly, it creates something stronger than either individual, a unified force that can't be broken, corrupted, or controlled. She turned to Thorne. That's why you've been dying. The bond formed naturally between us, but I've been fighting it out of fear. Every time I pulled back, every moment I doubted, it fractured the bond and caused you pain. Thorne approached slowly, deliberately, until he stood directly in front of her. And every time I pushed you away trying to protect you, I made it worse. He cupped her face in his hands. I should have trusted you. Trusted us. Trusted that love is stronger than prophecy. How touching, Davron spat. But sentiment won't save you. Even if you complete your precious bond, you're still outnumbered. My wolves will tear through your little rescue party and— Your wolves. Meredith's voice rang out as she stepped from the shadows with dozens of armed wolves. Are outnumbered. I've spent months gathering loyal packs, true to the Alpha King. They've surrounded this valley. Your rebellion is over, Davron. Chaos erupted. Davron's wolves attacked, but they were quickly overwhelmed by Meredith's forces and Thorne's pack. In the confusion, Kira ran to Sarah's prison. How do I free you? Kira pressed her hands against the crystal. Blood, Sarah whispered. Ashenblade blood breaks Ashenblade magic. But Kira, her eyes widened in horror. Behind you. Kira turned to see Davron, in full wolf form, lunging directly at Thorne's unprotected back. Time seemed to slow. She could see the trajectory, knew the outcome. Davron's jaws would close on Thorne's throat. The Alpha King would die. Unless she intervened. Power exploded from Kira's core. Raw, ancient, unstoppable. She didn't think, didn't plan. She simply reached out with everything she was and caught Davron mid-leap with a force of pure will. The wolf hung suspended in the air, frozen. No, Kira said, and her voice echoed with the power of generations. You will not touch him. Davron's form began to shimmer, to change, not shifting, but transforming at a fundamental level. His fur turned to smoke, his flesh to shadow. Within seconds, only a wisp of darkness remained, fading into nothing. Silence fell over the chamber. Every wolf, friend and foe alike, stared at Kira in shock. You unmade him, someone whispered. Erased him from existence. Kira stared at her trembling hands, horrified. I didn't mean to, I just wanted to stop him. Thorne was there instantly, pulling her into his arms. Breathe. You're all right. You protected me, protected us. That's all that matters. But the power, Kira's voice broke. Thorne, I could do that to anyone. I could do it to you. No, Sarah said firmly from her prison. You couldn't. Not to someone you love, someone who trusts you completely. That's the key I discovered. The Ashenblade power can only destroy those who act from darkness, from corruption. It literally unmakes evil while it heals and strengthens good. She smiled weakly. That's why Davron feared us so much. We're the moon's justice given form. Then help me free you, Kira said, slicing her palm with a sharp crystal shard. She pressed her bleeding hand against the prison. The crystal melted like ice in summer. Sunday Sarah collapsed forward, and Kira caught her, both sisters crying and laughing as they held each other. I thought you were dead, Kira sobbed. I thought I'd never see you again, Sarah whispered. But you came. You found me. Always, Kira promised. I'll always find you. As the remaining conspirators were subdued, and Meredith's wolves secured the chamber, Thorne approached the sisters. He'd found clothes somewhere, leather pants and a simple shirt that did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. Sarah Ashenblade, he said formally, you've been through an ordeal that would break most wolves. You have the gratitude of the Alpha King and all of Shadowmere for your sacrifice and your research. Whatever you need to heal, to recover, it's yours. Sarah studied him with eyes too, knowing for her age. What I need, she said carefully, is assurance that my sister's bond with you won't lead to her destruction. Your power, combined with hers, it's unprecedented, dangerous. Sarah, Kira protested, but her sister held up a hand. I spent months being experimented on, learning the limits and capabilities of our bloodline. I know what the complete bond entails. She looked between them. Your souls will be permanently intertwined. You'll share everything: power, pain, life force, even death. If one of you falls, the other follows. It's beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. I know, Thorne said quietly. I've known since the night Kira healed the child. I felt it forming, felt my life binding to hers. He reached for Kira's hand, and I chose it anyway. Every day, I choose it. Because a life without her isn't worth living. Kira's throat tightened. Even knowing I could destroy you? You won't, he said with absolute certainty. Because destruction was never your destiny, Kira. Transformation was. Evolution. You're not the death of the Alpha King system. You're its salvation, proof that power balanced with wisdom, strength tempered with compassion, can create something better than tyranny or chaos. Sarah smiled, tears streaming down her face. Then complete the bond, do it properly this time, with full understanding and consent. Because the world needs what you two can become together. Thorne turned to Kira, still holding her hand. I, Thorne Nightshade, Alpha King of Shadowmere, offer you my soul, my power, my life. Not as chains to bind you, but as wings to lift you higher. I see you, Kira Ashenblade, your strength, your compassion, your magnificent stubborn courage, and I choose you forever, in this life, and whatever comes after. The bond flared between them, visible now as threads of silver and gold light. Kira took a shaking breath. I, Kira Ashenblade, daughter of the moon blessed, offer you my soul, my power, my life. Not as a weapon to destroy you, but as a foundation to rebuild what's been broken. I see you, Thorne Nightshade, your lonely isolation, your fierce protection, your capacity for love despite every reason to close yourself off. And I choose you, forever, in this life and whatever comes after. The light between them exploded, flooding the chamber with radiance. Kira felt Thorne's presence settle into her soul, not invasive, but complementary. Two halves finally made whole. His strength became hers, her wisdom became his. Together, they were something new, something unprecedented, something destiny had been waiting for all along. When the light faded, Thorne pulled Kira into his arms and kissed her deep, thorough, claiming. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, and the chamber erupted in cheers. Well, Sarah said, wiping her eyes, I'd say the prophecy has been fulfilled. You destroyed the old Alpha King, the isolated, guarded man who ruled alone, and created something better in his place. Thorne laughed, the sound free and joyous in a way Kira had never heard before. Technically correct, the best kind of correct. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Kira looked back at the ancient walls covered in her family's history. The Ashenblade line had begun here, created to balance power with wisdom. Now, centuries later, that purpose had been fulfilled. And they would forge a new future together, no longer apart, no longer isolated, but united in a bond that couldn't be broken by prophecy, conspiracy, or even death itself. The blood moon rose 3 nights later, painting Shadowmere's fortress in shades of crimson and shadow. Every territory leader had gathered for the ceremony, including those who'd been part of Davron's conspiracy. Meredith had counseled discretion, suggested rooting them out quietly to avoid panic. Thorne had different plans. Are you certain about this? Kira asked as they dressed for the ceremony. She wore the traditional garb of the Alpha King's mate, silver and midnight blue, with the Ashenblade crest now woven alongside the Nightshade symbol. The conspiracy thrived in shadows and secrets, Thorne replied, fastening his formal jacket. It's time to bring everything into the light. His silver eyes met hers in the mirror. Besides, they need to understand what we've become, what they'll face if they continue to plot against us. The Great Hall was packed when they entered. Hundreds of wolves from every territory, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Whispers followed Kira and Thorne's entrance about the battle at Twilight Hollow, about Davron's death, about the bond that now blazed visibly between them when their powers were active. Thorne led Kira to the raised platform where the Alpha King traditionally stood alone. Instead, he positioned her beside him, his hand clasping hers in a clear statement of partnership. My wolves. Thorne's voice carried through the hall. We gather tonight under the blood moon to honor tradition and speak truth. For too long, this court has been poisoned by lies and conspiracy. Tonight, we purge that poison. He gestured, and Meredith's wolves brought forward 5 territory leaders, their hands bound with silver chains. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Probabland. These wolves stand accused of treason? Thorne continued. They conspired with Davron Ironclaw to overthrow the Alpha King, experimenting on innocent wolves to create a weapon from the Ashenblade bloodline. They kidnapped and tortured Sarah Ashenblade for months, seeking to harness her power for their own gain. You have no proof, one of the accused snarled. Davron acted alone. Did he? Sarah stepped forward, healed enough to stand, though still bearing the marks of her captivity. Because I have months of notes documenting your visits, your instructions, your orders. Shall I read them aloud? Starting with the night, you personally supervised my first treatment? The accused wolf's face went ashen. We also have correspondence, Meredith added, producing documents, sealed orders, financial records, showing payments from these territory leaders to rogue packs. The evidence is overwhelming. But why? Someone shouted from the crowd. Why betray the Alpha King? Thorne's expression hardened. Because they believed the system was broken. That concentrated power leads inevitably to tyranny. And they weren't entirely wrong. Shocked silence fell. The Alpha King system has flaws, Thorne continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. One wolf holding absolute power, making decisions that affect thousands, with no true check on that authority. I've felt the weight of it, the isolation it creates, the way it separates a leader from his people. He squeezed Kira's hand. These conspirators saw that weakness and sought to exploit it. But their solution? Chaos, murder, experimentation on innocence that was inexcusable. So what do you propose? Lady Meredith asked, playing her role perfectly. If the system is flawed, what changes? Thorne's smile was sharp. A new system, one that balances power with wisdom. He turned to Kira. The moon gave us alphas to lead, to protect, to enforce order. But she also gave us the Ashenblade line to balance, to mediate, to ensure that power never becomes tyranny. For centuries, we've operated as if these were opposing forces. Tonight, we embrace what they truly are, complementary. He raised their joined hands, and the bond flared to life, visible threads of silver and gold light spiraling between them, growing until they formed a corona around both figures. The crowd gasped. Several wolves dropped to their knees instinctively. This is the soul bond, Thorne declared, formed between the Alpha King and an Ashenblade. It cannot be faked, cannot be forced, cannot exist without complete trust and consent from both parties. When active, it creates a unified force, the Alpha's strength tempered by the Ashenblade's wisdom, the Ashenblade's power amplified by the Alpha's authority. But the prophecy, someone called out. The seers said she would destroy you. And she did, Thorne replied calmly. She destroyed the isolated king I was and helped me become something better. The prophecy has been fulfilled, just not in the way anyone expected. Kira stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. I am Kira Ashenblade, daughter of the moon-blessed line. For months I've hidden what I am out of fear. Fear that my power made me a weapon, a threat, something to be controlled or destroyed. But I've learned the truth. She looked out at the sea of faces. The Ashenblade ability doesn't exist to destroy alphas. It exists to complete them. To create a system where power and wisdom work together, where strength is balanced with compassion. She turned to the accused conspirators. You sought to use my sister's blood to create a weapon that could strip any alpha of their power. But that's not how our ability works. It responds to intention, to the moral weight of actions. It unmakes corruption, while it strengthens justice. Davron learned that truth moments before he ceased to exist. Fear flickered across the conspirators' faces. The Ashenblade power can't be weaponized, Kira continued. It can't be controlled or manufactured. It can only be freely given in partnership, in trust. That's what makes it beautiful and terrifying to those who seek power without accountability. Andy, it's Sai, Xiomara's story. One of the accused lunged forward, breaking free of his guards. You're an abomination, a threat to every alpha in existence. If we let you live, you'll destroy the natural order. He shifted mid-leap, massive jaws aimed at Kira's throat. The crowd screamed. Thorne moved to intercept, but Kira was faster. She raised her hand, and the attacking wolf simply stopped mid-air, frozen. Not by force, but by something deeper. His own corruption turned against him, his dark intentions binding him more effectively than any chains. I could unmake you, Kira said quietly, power thrumming in her voice, just as I did Davron. Your intentions, your willingness to murder in front of witnesses, it would be justified. The moon's justice made manifest. The frozen wolf's eyes widened in terror. But I won't, Kira continued. Because justice without mercy is just another form of tyranny. You'll face trial. You'll answer for your crimes. And you'll live with the knowledge that I showed you more compassion than you ever showed my sister. She lowered her hand, and the wolf collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Guards immediately secured him. Thorne moved to stand beside her again. This is the future of leadership in Shadowmere, and I hope, in all wolf territories. Alphas balanced by Ashenblade wisdom, power tempered by accountability, strength guided by justice. You're proposing a dual monarchy, one of the loyal territory leaders said slowly. A fundamental restructuring of our entire society. And I'm proposing evolution, Thorne corrected. The Alpha King system has served us for generations, but systems must adapt or die. We've seen what happens when power becomes absolute conspiracy, rebellion, innocent wolves tortured for political gain. His expression hardened. That ends now. Lady Meredith stepped forward. The Eastern Territory supports this vision. Lady Kira has proven herself through courage, wisdom, and restraint. If the Alpha King chooses to share his authority with one who balances rather than diminishes his power, who are we to object? One by one, the loyal territory leaders voiced their support. Some enthusiastic, some cautious, but none outright opposed, not after witnessing what Kira's power could do, and equally important, what she chose not to do. What of the conspirators? Someone asked. What happens to them? They'll be tried before a council of territory leaders, Thorne declared. Not by my judgment alone, but by their peers. Their lands will be administered by trusted regents until new leaders can be chosen, and their fate will be determined by the law they sought to undermine. He looked at the 5 bound wolves with cold finality. You wanted to dismantle the Alpha King system, Cross. Instead, you've given me the justification to strengthen it with checks, balances, and accountability. You've failed in every possible way. As the conspirators were led away, the ceremony continued, but everything had changed. Thorne and Kira stood together throughout, their bond visible to all, a living symbol of the new order. When the formal proceedings ended and the celebration began, Sarah approached with Lyra at her side. That was quite a performance, Sarah said with a tired smile, though I could have done without the attempted murder. Are you all right? Kira asked, concerned. Her sister still looked fragile, her recovery far from complete. I will be, thanks to Thorne's healers, and to knowing you're safe. Sarah's expression grew serious. But Kira, you need to understand something. What you did tonight, showing restraint, choosing mercy over vengeance, that's what will make this new system work. The moment you start using your power as a weapon rather than a balance, it all falls apart. I know, Kira said softly. It terrifies me, Sarah, having this much power, knowing I could unmake someone with a thought. Good, Sarah replied firmly. The day it stops terrifying you is the day you become what Davron accused you of being. Fear of your own power is what keeps it in check. Thorne joined them, carrying 2 glasses of wine. Your sister is wise, as always. Though I have to add, you're not alone in this, Kira. The bond means we share not just power, but responsibility. Your restraint is my restraint. Your wisdom is my wisdom. We keep each other balanced. Until one of us falls, Kira said quietly, voicing the fear that had haunted her since Twilight Hollow. The bond means if I die, you die. How is that fair to your people? What if something happens to me and they lose their Alpha King? Then they'll know I died protecting something worth dying for, Thorne said simply. But more importantly, the bond makes us both stronger, more resilient. We're harder to kill together than apart. And we have something worth fighting for, not just survival, but a future worth building. Music swelled through the hall. Thorne offered his hand with a slight bow. Dance with me, my queen. Let them see what partnership looks like. Kira took his hand, letting him pull her onto the floor. As they moved together, perfectly synchronized, she felt eyes watching, assessing, judging, wondering if this new system could truly work. They're afraid of me, she murmured against his shoulder. They're in awe of you, Thorne corrected. There's a difference. Fear makes people dangerous, reactive. Awe makes them listen, consider, respect. He pulled back slightly to meet her eyes. You showed them something tonight that they've never seen before, an Ashenblade using her power not to destroy, but to preserve. That's revolutionary. No pressure then, Kira said wryly. Thorne laughed, the sound rich and warm. We'll figure it out together. Make mistakes, learn, adapt. That's what partnerships do. As the dance ended, Finn approached nervously. Alpha King, Lady Kira, I wanted to thank you both, coarseness. My mother's treatment has improved, and my sister is asking when she can visit the nice lady who saved her from the ice. Anytime? Kira said warmly. Bring her by the archives tomorrow. I have some children's books Sarah and I used to read together. She might enjoy them. After Finn left, more wolves approached, some to offer congratulations, others to pledge loyalty. a few with genuine questions about how the new system would work. Kira answered as best she could, Thorne supporting her with gentle touches and quiet affirmations. Hours later, as the celebration wound down, they finally retreated to Thorne's chambers. Kira collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. That was terrifying, she admitted. You were magnificent, Thorne countered, sitting beside her. Every word, every decision, every moment you chose wisdom over easy vengeance, magnificent. Kira leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you think it will work? This new system we're building? I think, Thorne said carefully, that we're going to face challenges we can't imagine. Resistance from traditionalists, fear from those who don't understand the bond, perhaps even other Ashenblade descendants emerging who disagree with our approach. He kissed the top of her head. But yes, I think it will work. Because it has to. Because the alternative, returning to the old ways, to isolation and absolute power that leads inevitably to what we just escaped. And if I make a mistake, if I use my power wrong, then we learn from it together, Thorne said firmly. That's what the bond means, Kira. Not perfection, but partnership. Not infallibility, but commitment to keep trying, keep growing, keep choosing each other and our people. Kira turned to look at him, this Alpha King who'd become so much more. I love you, she said simply. Prophecy, politics, and power aside, I love you. And I love you, Thorne replied, pulling her into his arms. My destruction, my salvation, my perfect complement. Whatever destiny throws at us next, we face it together. Outside, the blood moon reached its apex, bathing Shadowmere in crimson light. Somewhere in the fortress, conspirators awaited trial. Somewhere in the territories, wolves whispered about the new order and what it meant for the future. But in that moment, in the safety of each other's arms, Kira and Thorne were simply two souls who'd found their perfect match and who would face whatever came next as one. 3 months later, spring transformed Shadowmere. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows, and the forest rang with birdsong. In the fortress courtyard, workers put finishing touches on a new structure, the council hall, where territory leaders would now meet quarterly to discuss policy with both the Alpha King and his Ashenblade partner. Kira stood watching the construction, one hand resting on her still flat stomach, the other shading her eyes from the bright Sunday. Lost in thought? Sarah's voice came from behind her. Kira's sister had regained weight and color over the past months, though certain scars, physical and otherwise, would never fully fade. Just thinking about how much has changed, Kira replied. Sometimes it feels like a dream, like I'll wake up back at that train station, rejected and alone. But you're not. Sarah linked her arm through Kira's. You're here, bonded to the most powerful alpha in the territories, carrying his child, and fundamentally reshaping Wolf society. Not bad for a girl who came looking for her missing sister. Kira laughed. When you put it that way, her expression sobered. How are you really, Sarah? I know you say you're fine, but I'm healing, Sarah said honestly. The nightmares are getting better, kinded. The healers say the damage from the experiments will continue to improve. She met Kira's concerned gaze. And I'm alive, free, and watching my little sister become a queen. That's more than I dared hope for during those months in captivity. I'm not a queen, Kira protested. We specifically avoided that title. I'm a partner, an advisor, You're a queen in everything but name, Sarah interrupted gently. And the people love you for it. They see you in the markets, talking to merchants. They watch you mediate disputes with fairness and wisdom. They hear stories of how you heal the sick and protect the weak. Whether you call yourself queen or not, that's what you've become. Before Kira could respond, a commotion erupted near the gates. She turned to see a travel-worn messenger being escorted through, his urgent expression sending tension through the gathered wolves. Thorne emerged from the fortress, and Kira felt their bond pulse with alert concern. She hurried to his side as the messenger dropped to one knee. "Alpha King, Lady Kira," the messenger panted. "I bring urgent news from the northern reaches. A young woman has appeared claiming Ashenblade heritage. She bears the mark and displays abilities similar to Lady Kira's. But," he hesitated, "her intentions are unclear. She's demanding audience with you both, and she's not alone. She's brought an entire pack of displaced wolves, refugees from territories that rejected them for being corrupted by Ashenblade influence." Kira and Thorne exchanged glances. They'd known this would happen eventually, that other Ashenblade descendants would emerge, drawn by Kira's public presence. But so soon? "How many wolves?" Thorne asked. "Nearly 100, my king. They're camped at the northern border, awaiting permission to enter." "Send word that they may enter peacefully," Thorne decided. "We'll meet this woman and hear what she has to say. Prepare guest quarters for the refugees." After the messenger left, Kira turned to Thorne. "This could be a challenge to our authority. Another Ashenblade, with different ideas about how the power should be used. Or an opportunity," Thorne countered, "to prove that this system works, that it can adapt and grow. If there are more Ashenblades, we should find them, offer guidance, create a network of balance keepers across all territories." "Ever the optimist," Kira said with a slight smile. "Ever the strategist," he corrected, pulling her close. "Besides, you're not facing this alone. Whatever this woman wants, whatever challenges she brings, we handle it together." The northern delegation arrived 2 days later. At their head rode a woman in her 30s with silver-streaked black hair and eyes the color of storm clouds. The crescent mark on her throat was visible, bolder than Kira's, almost defiant in its display. She dismounted before Thorne and Kira with fluid grace, her gaze assessing them both. "Alpha King Nightshade, Lady Ashenblade." Her voice carried an edge like steel wrapped in silk. "I am Ravenna Ashenblade, daughter of the Western Branch, and I've come to discuss the future of our bloodline." "You're welcome in Shadowmere," Thorne said formally. "All wolves seeking refuge find sanctuary here." "Sanctuary?" Ravenna's laugh was bitter. "I don't need sanctuary, Alpha King. I need allies. Because while you've been building your pretty partnership here, the traditionalist alphas in the West have been hunting my family. 3 of my cousins are dead. 2 more are in hiding. All because your little display at the Blood Moon ceremony made every alpha with something to hide, terrified of what an Ashenblade might reveal." Kira's stomach dropped. "We didn't mean—" "Intentions don't matter," Ravenna interrupted sharply. "Results do. You outed our bloodline to the entire wolf world. Now we're targets." Ravenna tarply. "And we're example." "Then help us change that," Thorne said firmly. "Help us prove that Ashenblades aren't threats, but partners." "Cantel, the council we're building, the system we're creating, it needs more than just Kira and me. It needs Ashenblades willing to stand with alphas across territories, to demonstrate that this balance can work everywhere, not just in Shadowmere." Ravenna studied him suspiciously. "And what's in it for you? Why would the most powerful Alpha King in generations willingly give up absolute authority?" "Because absolute authority is a cage," Thorne replied. "I've lived in that cage for decades. It's lonely, isolating, and it makes you paranoid about every decision. Partnering with Kira freed me from that cage. I'm offering the same freedom to other alphas if they're brave enough to accept it. Brave or foolish, Ravenna challenged. Perhaps both, Kira interjected. Ravenna, I understand your anger. I understand feeling exposed and vulnerable because of choices you didn't make. But hiding, running, fighting, that only confirms the traditionalists' fears. We need to show them that Ashenblades, partnered with Alphas, create something stronger, more stable, more just than either could achieve alone. Ravenna's expression softened slightly. You're idealistic. That's dangerous. I'm hopeful, Kira corrected. There's a difference. Idealism ignores reality. Hope acknowledges reality and chooses to work towards something better anyway. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Ravenna nodded slowly. I'll stay. For now. My people need rest, healing, time to recover from being hunted. While we're here, I'll observe this system you're building. If it works, if it's truly sustainable, then maybe I'll consider helping you expand it to other territories. That's all we ask, Thorne said. A chance to prove what's possible. As Ravenna's wolves were escorted to their quarters, Sarah appeared at Kira's elbow. That went better than expected. She could have challenged you directly. She still might, Kira murmured. But Thorne's right, this is an opportunity. If we can show other Ashenblades that partnership works, that it doesn't mean submission or losing ourselves, we might actually build something lasting. Over the following weeks, Ravenna proved to be both an asset and a challenge. She questioned everything: policies, decisions, the structure of the council. But her questions forced Kira and Thorne to refine their thinking, to defend their choices with logic and evidence rather than authority alone. She also worked with the refugees, teaching them skills, helping them integrate into Shadowmere society. And gradually, grudgingly, she began to soften toward the partnership she'd arrived skeptical of. The turning point came during a council meeting when one of the traditionalist territory leaders openly challenged Kira's authority to speak on military matters. With respect, Lady Ashenblade, you've never fought in battle. You've never led troops. Why should your voice carry weight in strategic decisions? Before Kira could respond, Ravenna stood. Because strategy isn't just about tactics and troop movements, counselor. It's about understanding motivations, predicting responses, weighing moral consequences. Lady Kira may not have commanded soldiers, but she's proven herself capable of reading people, of seeing solutions others miss. That's as valuable in war as any battlefield experience. The counselor fell silent, clearly surprised by Ravenna's defense. After the meeting, Kira found Ravenna alone, on a balcony overlooking the territory. Thank you, Kira said simply, for speaking up. Ravenna shrugged, but her expression was thoughtful. I've spent 3 months watching you and Thorne navigate impossible situations. Balancing tradition with innovation, authority with collaboration, strength with compassion. It shouldn't work, but somehow it does. She met Kira's gaze. You were right, about hope. About choosing to build something better despite the risks. Does this mean you'll help us expand the system? It means I'll try, Ravenna replied. I'll return west and approach some of the more progressive alphas, see if any are willing to partner with Ashenblades from my family. No promises, but I believe now that it's possible. Kira felt tears prick her eyes. That's all we can ask. 6 months after the blood moon ceremony, Kira went into labor. Thorne barely left her side, his worry and love flooding through their bond so strongly that Sarah finally ordered him to take a walk before his anxiety made Kira's contractions worse. He's impossible, Kira gasped between contractions, but she was smiling. He loves you, Sarah said, mopping her sister's brow. And he's about to become a father. Cut him some slack. Hours later, as dawn broke over Shadowmere, Kira gave birth to a daughter. The baby girl opened her eyes, one silver like thorns, one gray like Kira's, and let out a healthy wail. Perfect, the healer pronounced. Absolutely perfect. And look. She turned the baby slightly, revealing a mark on her tiny shoulder blade. Not a crescent like Kira's, but a sun and moon intertwined. A new symbol, Sarah whispered in awe. For a new bloodline. Not purely Ashenblade, not purely Alpha, but both together. When Thorne was finally allowed back in, he approached almost reverently, his eyes wide with wonder as Kira placed their daughter in his arms. She's so small, he murmured. She's strong, Kira corrected. I can feel it through the bond. She'll be powerful, Thorne, maybe even more powerful than either of us. Then we'll teach her wisdom to balance that power, Thorne said softly, touching their daughter's tiny hand. We'll show her that strength and compassion aren't opposing forces, but complementary ones. What should we name her? Kira asked. Thorne considered. Aurora. It means dawn, a new beginning. Aurora Nightshade. Kira tested the name. I like it. Aurora Nightshade, daughter of the Alpha King and an Ashenblade, first of a new generation. As if in agreement, baby Aurora wrapped her tiny fingers around Thorne's thumb, holding tight. News of Aurora's birth spread quickly through the territories. A child born of the soul bond, carrying both bloodlines, she was living proof that the new system could create something unprecedented. Something stronger than either parent alone. 2 weeks later, the first Alpha from outside Shadowmere arrived requesting to meet with an Ashenblade, hoping to form a partnership for his territory. Then another, and another. The revolution Kira and Thorne had started was spreading. Standing on the fortress balcony months later, watching Aurora sleep in her cradle while Thorne reviewed territory reports, Kira reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She'd arrived in Shadowmere desperate and alone, seeking her lost sister, expecting nothing beyond answers. Instead, she'd found family, purpose, love, and a destiny far greater than any prophecy could have predicted. What are you thinking? Thorne asked, coming to stand beside her. That the prophecy was right, Kira replied. I destroyed the Alpha King, the isolated absolute ruler who trusted no one and bore all burdens alone. But in his place, we created something better. A partnership, a balance, a future where power and wisdom work together instead of in opposition, transformation instead of destruction. Thorne agreed, pulling her close. The prophecy's true fulfillment. Do you ever regret it? Kira asked softly. Giving up absolute authority? Sharing power? Thorne was quiet for a moment. Every day, I wake up grateful that you walked through my gates, that you challenged me, changed me, completed me. The man I was before you, he was powerful but empty. Now I'm whole. We're whole. He kissed her temple. No, Kira, I don't regret it for a moment. Aurora stirred in her sleep, and both parents turned to watch their daughter. She would grow up in a world they were still building, one where Alphas and Ashenblades worked together, where power was balanced by wisdom, where strength served justice. Perfect. It wouldn't be perfect. There would be challenges, resistance, failures along the way. But they would face them together as partners, as mates, as two halves of a greater whole. The prophecy had declared that Kira would destroy the Alpha King, and she had. But in his place, she'd helped create something far better. A future worth fighting for, a love worth dying for, and a legacy that would reshape wolf society for generations to come. As the sun set over Shadowmere, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Thorne wrapped his arms around Kira and together they watched their daughter dream perhaps of the world they were building, perhaps of the role she would one day play in it. The prophecy was fulfilled. The bond was complete. The transformation had begun. And their story, the Alpha King who chose love over power, and the Ashenblade who chose partnership over destruction, became legend, whispered in every territory, inspiring others to believe that destiny could be rewritten, that prophecies could be transformed, and that love, when coupled with courage and wisdom, could change the world.